Hello team, welcome back. In the earlier lecture, we have seen the SCM polling and today we will see how we can trigger the build remotely. So let's start with. So during the job configuration, we have seen there was an option of build trigger where we need to define that what will be the trigger event for the build. There is an option available is remote build trigger or other build trigger. What is the use of this particular option? That particular option is basically helpful when you want to trigger your Jenkins job or Jenkins build from some other server. It means you are executing your Jenkins server on server A and you have some other application which is executing on server B, and you want to set up your application in a way that if a particular event is firing on server B, then the job which is present on server A that should be triggered. In that case, remote build trigger will be helpful. Let's discuss the use case of the remote build trigger. If we are using the remote build trigger, you can execute your build with the help of some scripts, with some API calls, or either on UI button. Like you can configure the URL of your Jenkins server job on the button click, so whenever a manual user or some other business stakeholders will click that particular button, a job will be triggered on your Jenkins server. Let's see how we can set up the remote build trigger. For this, we need to go to the Jenkins server. So here you can see I'm on my Jenkins server. I will log in my account and I'm on my dashboard. Now suppose we want to trigger any of that particular build from a remote server. So you can open any job, the sample job or the Maven project which you want, right? I'm opening the sample job. Until now, 3 builds of the sample job is executed. I will go to the configuration. Now once the configuration will load, I will switch to the build triggers. And over here I'm getting the different options. We are talking about the first one, trigger builds remotely, right? Easy from scripts. Once I will check this particular checkbox, I'm getting some authentication token over here. You can mention any string or any text over here. Suppose I'm mentioning test auth, right? This is the authentication token which I'm mentioning. Now what I will do, I will copy this particular URL, right? And I will open some other browser. Suppose I am opening the Firefox, and in the Firefox I will paste this particular URL which I just copied, right? On my build I will save this, right? I will copy the address of my Jenkins server and I will replace the Jenkins under URL with that particular server address. Now I will replace this token name with the token which I have provided in my job. I have provided test auth in my job. Hit enter and this will render you on this particular web page. Over here you need to supply your Jenkins server username and password and hit enter. Now you can see if you will switch to your Jenkins server, a new job is being triggered, right? You can see job 4 is being triggered when you will hit that particular URL with that particular token and supplied your username and password to the URL, right? You can see the Jenkins job 4 is triggered, right? So this is the way how you can trigger your build remotely. If you want to trigger the build remotely, you just need to supply the Jenkins server URL with the auth token, supply your Jenkins username and password, and that will trigger your build remotely. That particular URL which we have hit from the Firefox, that URL can be mentioned within any script, within the REST API call, or behind the click event of any button, right? Whenever that particular script being called or that REST API being called or that button being clicked, the job which you have configured that should be triggered on your Jenkins server. So this is the way if you want to configure the build trigger remotely. Now let's go to the job again and go to the configuration, open the build trigger options. The second one is build after other project builds. You want to mention some project over here if you want to define a complete pipeline, right? That all the jobs will be executed in a pipeline. We will see this particular option in coming tutorials. Now we have in the next option build periodically. You need to define some regular expression over here if you want to trigger that particular build periodically. Suppose I'm defining 5 asterisk over here and save it. It means that particular job will be auto triggered every minute. Let's see. You can see job number 5 is auto triggered and job 5 is completed. If we will open the job number 5, then we can say the started by timer. This job is not started by any manual user or poll SCM. This is started by the timer. It means the automatic scheduled timer which we have configured inside the job configuration. If we will wait for another minute, a new job will be automatically triggered. and you can see a new job is being triggered. The earlier job was triggered at 6:02 and new job is being triggered at 6:03. So every minute this job will be auto triggered. We will go to the configuration and remove the job trigger polling. I will uncheck this. Now we have the GitHub branches, GitHub pull request, GitHub triggers, and SCM polling and poll SCM. We have discussed few of them, and in the coming lectures we will discuss few others as well. Let's save your program. So team, this is the way if you want to schedule your build or if you want to trigger your build from some external server or some external URL, right? So thank you team. Thanks for your time.